All right, so on to the specifics. So we're here to Christopher Faraone, page 41 to 95. What is Eros? Well, Eros is a god. Eros is also, and the state of being afflicted by Eros is described like a disease. In fact, I was noticing that, and Faraone makes a good point of this, that a person being struck by Eros is described as if he was being killed in battle. So they say the same line. The mists cover the eyes. The mists of darkness cover their eyes, as a way of saying that someone was killed in the Iliad. But here it would say like, oh, an Eros afflicted him or her, and the mists of darkness fell over her eyes. Her personhood, his personhood and agency are gone. Okay, so Eros, in fact, is described often one-on-one like a disease and as a disease in magical literature. Now, Eros as a disease can be granted by a god, by the god Eros, or by another god inflicting you with Eros. Or, in fact, it can be brought upon by nasty sorcerers that want to make you go crazy. How just nasty are they? Well, let's get into that in just a minute. So when we think about Eros, he's depicted as either having a whip or a bow and an arrow or a torch. Like he is violent. He makes things burn. He strikes with arrows. This is a similar figure to Kama, the god of desire in India, who rides a parrot and has a bow and arrow, but the arrows at the ends of their tips, where the arrowheads would be, are actually flowers. Being afflicted by Kama is very similar to being afflicted by Eros. So there is some connection there, though I won't posit an Indo-European connection. Anyway, so this diseases of this affliction from Eros can be God-given. And in fact, this god that gives it is the root of our Cupid, like we think of in the West today. So the disease of Eros can be brought upon by either the will of gods or by rituals. So like a curse, he writes on 49, if erotic passion is an accursed state, it stands to reason that techniques of cursing can be used to instill such a passion in another person. In fact, erotic magic uses the same language as violent curses to afflict enemies. May he be dragged by his guts. May he be pierced throughout all of his body. All of this sort of stuff. Like I would pronounce a curse onto someone. It's the same type of language that are used in the erotic affliction. And remember, erotic affliction is agitation, inability to be satiated, can't eat, can't drink, and then agoge, it leads, and then you're dragged as if by your guts to the sorcerer or the operator. And then you will be unable to resist having constant amorous actions with that operator. So Eros is like, imagine you are the most unrequitedly lovesick that you've ever been. That's a good indication of what they're starting to talk about with Eros. But an Eros affliction is thought to be completely devastating. I've been in love. It can be devastating. So Faraone starts out talking about Eros by describing this pierced figure, and I have a picture of the figure here. It's a common picture. Even as I look over here, there's this wonderful book called Magica Hiera. So that's Greek magic. It's on ancient Greek magic and religion, and it has a very, very similar item on the cover. It's a great book, by the way. Good collection of essays. So what's going on with these piercing effigies? Well, he notes that these are later than we would see in ancient Greek love magic, as we're looking at. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at a female effigy. Now, by effigy, I mean an image. An effigy that is pierced and bound. She is bound by her arms and legs, and she's pierced in all sorts of miserable ways. If we read one of the descriptions, she is thought to be pierced from all of her orifices, up top and down low. All right, so this is actually, when we're looking at this image, you would instantly think it's kind of like a voodoo doll. This is a death image. It's a curse to kill someone. But in fact, when we did a little bit more research, what we see is this is an Eros spell, and it's an agoge spell. So the Eros spell is to bring a specific woman to a specific man. Why the piercing, the violent piercing? Because the Eros is, and the feeling of Eros is supposed to be piercing and horrible. So it not only binds So it keeps you from being able to eat or see or do anything. It afflicts, it binds and afflicts, and it gives an uncontrollable, miserable passion. So when the piercing occurs, and I think this is a general term that you can say for magic in general. Piercing is a performative ritual. It does something. It pierces the woman like Eros should pierce her. It inflicts pain like the piercing would inflict, like stabbing someone, but that pain is emotional pain. This is called, and we'll come back to this term, a persuasive analogy, in that I take the figure, I stick it with pins. The pins are supposed to be erotic desire, and then the actual person is afflicted with those erotic desire, just like the pins. Okay, now this is not a violent or disturbed individual who does this. And this is sort of interesting. It's not just that you're trying to cause a woman pain. In fact, causing a woman pain when we really get right down to it isn't the result at all. That's not the desired result at all. The desire is to bring a woman to one and hopefully, theoretically, to cement a marriage situation. So what we're looking at here is we're not looking at a depraved individual aiming to cut a woman up by cutting up her effigy, but we are looking at a culturally conditioned ritual action in which piercing of effigies is thought to bring about a piercing of erotic desire near toward madness. Now, when you think about the difference between Eros as a torture or a ritual that kills someone, you'll notice that Eros makes a woman miserable until they yield to sex. A killing ritual would just pierce and pierce and pierce until they die. So there are similar curses that he notes. One is that, and Pharaoh is talking about vows, almost like cursing vows. So Achilles in the Iliad says that he will not eat and drink until he has avenged Patroclus, his beloved, who was killed by Hector. Also, we have in the Christian New Testament, the enemies of the Apostle Paul vow to neither eat nor drink until Paul was killed. In the same way, when we read the languages of these erotic spells, a woman can neither eat nor drink until she comes forth to him. So she's deprived of sustenance until she yields unto sexual congress in one way or another.